Welcome to the Dr. Karin Show, where the mind, body, and heart meet the soul. I am here with the founder of this beautiful foundation called Hungry for Happiness. Her name is Samantha Skelly, but we're going to call her Sam today. Say hey, Sam.
Hey guys, how's it going?
It's going great. Sam is coming to us from California, and she has been up early because she took her boyfriend to the airport this morning.
I need us to score some brownie points somehow. I don't know.
She did. I know. I love it. I love it. It's so that's commitment. She got up early because they're 3 hours ahead of us. So, but I love Sam. I did Sam's podcast, Hungry for Happiness, recently, and she is just, if you want to see her, you're going to love her energy, and she's got a ton of podcasts out, and we'll talk about it again later, but she is creating so much change in the world, and her specialty is around our relationship with food and specific to eating disorders. But what Sam is doing differently that is going to revolutionize the healing on this planet around this is that she looks at the deeper emotional and spiritual reasons that are behind eating and using food as a drug, and the reason why we have gotten to be where we are. And she really likes to kind of dismantle what's happening with these diet crazes that are really blowing up and that are, I know, making billions in this country, but they're not sustainable and they're not working. So I'm going to dive in with her, because if this resonates with you, I think it resonates with everybody on some level, right? Because we're not taught how to have a good relationship with food. We're taught to yo-yo. So I want you to dive in. So let me just tell you guys, she has this foundation called Hungry for Happiness. She also wrote a book called One Woman's Journey from Fighting Food to Finding Freedom, How to End Binge Eating Forever. Is that up on Amazon?
Yeah, that's on Amazon. You can get that up there.
Cool. Skelly is spelled Skelly. And I want her to talk about why she's so passionate about this. I know you've had your own journey of, I know you've been a dancer, you were an actress, and you had this on your website, you talked about this 18-year bad relationship with food, and you really kind of were doing the fitness instruction and kind of battling some of this yourself. So talk about your journey and how you became so passionate about it.
So I grew up as a dancer and a child actor. So my whole life, I was either acting in front of a camera on film sets, or I was on a stage dancing, performing, and competing. And so my entire life, perfection was such a root of a lot. I internalized my worth as when I succeed and when I booked gigs and when I, win awards, that makes me feel loved, that makes me feel worthy. And so my innate worth was constantly tied to things outside of myself, and I didn't know how to innately create worth inside of myself. And so when I was 18, I stopped dancing, I stopped acting, and I traveled 33 countries in 4 years trying to really figure out who I am, what is my significance. I always put my significance outside of myself. But what happened was I started traveling, and I was in Australia, and I was lying on the beach on Manly Beach, and I just thought to myself, wow, I'm who am I? What's going on? And I went into this panic of I need to find significance, and I found that in just my body. It shifted to I just need to make sure that I still have this body, this dancer's body. What if I gain weight? And I started panicking about that.
How old were you? How old were you when you had that?
I was 18 then.
You were 18. That's really early for you to hit that place of awareness. Yeah, go ahead.
And then that's when I started my I called it my diet depression days of I did not know how to eat like a normal person. I was constantly restricting and then overeating, because that's just a natural reaction to deprivation. I couldn't eat like a normal person. I was so disconnected from my body. And I was so addicted to the struggle. I was so addicted to trying another thing and another thing and another thing. And every time that stuff failed, I just internalized it as, I'm a failure. I have no willpower. I can't do this. And I'm like, I just don't understand how people can eat like normal people. How do you eat when you're hungry and stop when you're full? I did not understand it. So every single Monday I would start a new diet, and I would do diets on diets, trying to figure this out, and nothing was working. And so after 4 years of doing this, I'm like, I gotta give this shit up. I gotta figure out what's really at the core of this. So I was living in England at the time, and I actually had a fitness company, ironically, which is so out of alignment. There I was trying to help people get healthy, and behind the scenes I was, so disconnected from what health actually was. So I moved back to Vancouver, and I was like, what if I get into fitness industry. Like, what if I start doing a bikini competition? I'm like, that will sort my shit out. No. So I started doing that. I started competing, and I started, even heavily restricting, working out for 2 hours every single day, and just spun myself into like a deeper and deeper and deeper dark, state of anxiety and overwhelm, and just completely lost myself in that, quest. And then I got to this place after where I'm like, what am I doing? I remember it was like after one of my competitions where I finished my competition. I went backstage and I just like binge ate on nibs and chocolate almonds until I like literally needed to throw up. And I'm like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? Like, this is ridiculous. Like, there's more to life than this.
Right.
And
It's
it was
like,
like, in
yeah,
that
you get
moment
that
where I'm like,
emptiness, right? Yeah.
yeah, 100%. And so after that, I'm like, I need to sort this out. So I spent the next 3.5 years of my life just really working on who I was, really eliminating everything that I was using as a crutch to make myself feel a certain way, including like, relationships that weren't serving me and friendships that weren't serving me and dieting and this and that. And I just got back down to simplicity of like, what does it feel like to feel happy? Like, what is that? Because I didn't know.
Wow.
And so I did it. That's when my spiritual development journey started, of like really understanding the difference between like a visceral, an emotional hunger cue and a physical hunger cue, and really understanding what that was. And through that process, I realized that like my issues with food had nothing to do with food. It was all self-worth related. And so the losing weight, the gaining weight, all of it was just all so innate. And so after I completed that journey, I'm like, people need to know about this. Like, our world is so fucked up when it comes to food, and like women are struggling so heavily. And I felt the contrast in my body between what it felt like to spend 80% of my day worried about food in my body versus zero. And I'm like, all right, this is my mission. And so it was just that. And so that was 4 years ago, which was like the birth of Hungry for Happiness.
Can you talk about that? Thank you. That story is, so many people that are listening like connect to so much of that. I want to hear from you what you look for in other people. Like the story, I can imagine what kind of external reinforcement you were getting, but can you just touch on that, just you personally, like growing up in the as an actress and as a dancer and then as a fitness and then a bikini model, like what was reinforcing it that was fooling you into this temporary satisfaction, which wasn't sustainable? But yeah, what was it feeding that ended up feeling really empty? Yeah,
it was like, when I am perfect, then I am loved. That was like the connection that my brain made. So it wasn't about like,
I just got chill bumps all over the side of my body, and that's because that is it. Yeah,
and that was it. And it's it manifested in so many ways. It's like at school, I'm like, I always have to be perfect at school. I always have to get good grades. I always have to I have to have the best business and the best body and the best boyfriend and the best this and the best. Like, I did not give myself permission to be even an iota of flawed,
Yeah.
And so the addiction to perfectionism spun me into disordered eating and all sorts of things that were so exhausting. I was white knuckling my way through life trying to polish a turd, essentially, and try and figure out like, how do I make the exterior look so shiny, because I'm terrified of not being loved.
Yeah.
And what's so interesting about this is people ask me like this whole like nature versus nurture conversation of like, oh, did your parents expect that? I'm like, no, my parents are freaking awesome. They showered me in love constantly. It's like, never once did I, I mean, I think to some extent all parents kind of do a number on their kids, whether they mean to or not. And like potentially like, my parents, may have said something unintentionally that
Right.
I internalized and metabolized that as, oh, I will get love from them when I am perfect. But it was no fault of their own, of course. But it's just such an interesting thing. Like, perfectionism can be such a slippery slope. And so when clients come to us, it's like, that's one of the first things that I realize in them, of like this constant need to like make sure everything looks great. And I think even as, I'm not a mother yet, but you're a mother, and maybe you can attest to this, because I hear this a lot in my community, like this whole thing of like, oh yeah, motherhood's great, yeah, everything's great, oh yeah, this is perfect. And it's like no, why don't we just like be real and be like, motherhood fucking is hard, it's really hard to raise a child sometimes, and like, why don't we just be real about that? Because the more the more real we are about our situation, the more relatable we can be, and we can have deeper connections. And ultimately, at the end of the day, connection is what we all are starving for and craving. So it's even interesting, like on Instagram, the post where I'm like, no makeup, sharing my heart. It's like, way more engagement than like the polished version of me, and people all know the difference.
It's so true. People want real, because you're exactly right. I mean, as you were talking about your life journey, like it was like super clear spiritually to me that your soul came into this life for this calling and that part, and you going through all of that, like it was just your soul agreed to it. So you called in this life of where you your DNA was wired for perfectionism, right? And you came in beautiful, and you came in fit, and you came in craving this fitness, but it's like your journey was that you had to find out that was such a broken reality, and that
definitely.
And then you called in this like message, and so now, because of all of that pain that you went through, this was just your purpose when you came, and you had to go through that to get to this.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because, like I said at the beginning, like I never planned this, and it's like Hungry for Happiness is like this entity above me that is constantly channeling information for me to create and do, and it speaks to me in so many different ways. Like last week, it was like, hey, cancel everything for 2018. Don't do any live events, and I was like, wait a second, that's like 30% of our business. So literally last week, I was like, took everything off my calendar for 2018, canceled every single retreat, canceled every live event, like. We had sold out shit, so I just literally canceled everything, and it felt so good. But yeah, it's like this was already predestined. Like the reason why I was conceived was for this reason, like, and it's so clear in like every cell of my body, and the universe confirms that on a daily basis.
I love it. You actually have a grandmother energy. I'm just gonna tell you, it's coming in super strong. Like it's like right here all over me. Yeah, like it actually makes me want to cry. Really strong grandmother energy helping you. Like that is so freaking proud of you.
Wow.
Yeah, super strong. She's like wiping, whoever that is, she's like right here.
Wow, that's so cool.
But she's there. She can be both ways. It's actually really overwhelming. She's like, tell her. I have mediumship stuff that I sometimes let slip out. Still a little in the closet, yeah. Well, I see your dream catcher back there, so I was like, I'm just going to toss this out.
I love it.
But yeah, well, there's a spiritual meaning behind it too, and that's what you're trying to get to, because this striving for happiness, and you nailed it, and you nail it when you talk about love, because I mean, I do therapy now. I do more life coaching because I'm so holistic and I'm so like off the grid of being a normal psychotherapist, because grandmothers pop in and stuff happens, but at the end of the day, it is always about feeling lovable. It's always about worthiness. And the reason that people are struggling is always because something in them, they've agreed to some false paradigm that they are not lovable. And it can show up in many ways, but for this, it shows up in food and body image. And there's so much perpetual, rapid fire messaging coming in at us, and with social media being so ever present for women right now. So I want you to talk about what you're seeing. I mean, because these women are coming to you. So Sam has developed a kind of a coaching program, and she calls it the Phoenix Formula, and she has a society inside the Hungry for Happiness, which, by the way, the title is amazing. You totally channeled that. That was given to you. I love it. And so if this resonates with you, I want you to talk about like what you see and what women are coming to you with when they come in. They're hungry for this happiness. They're hungry to be healed. And talk about some of these stories that you're seeing. Like what needs to be healed?
Oh, it's such a good question. So the women that I work with the most are women who are really caught in that like diet binge cycle. They're feeling extremely disconnected from their body. They're trying to shame their way to happiness and shame their way to be, fit, and it's all. So here's the thing, right? In life, there's only two ways of doing things. Like as far as motivation is concerned, right? So like, are we motivated by love, or are we motivated by fear? Yeah. And if we look at like the dieting paradigm, like everything is motivated by fear. Like I gotta diet and restrict because I hate what I look like, and I'm terrified if this happens, and if this happens, then I'm not gonna be allowed. And blah blah blah.
So right.
Right. So it's so or like I gotta restrict this because I don't want the number to go up on the scale. Like everything is driven by fear.
You're so right.
And for good reason. I mean, like we're constantly told these messages constantly. Like that is the societal conditioning right now of like we have to be driven by fear because that's what motivates us. And if we're not motivated by fear, then we're going to be complacent and not be loved, right? Yep. Whereas this new paradigm that like I'm really pushing right now and like really trying to infiltrate into my community is like, let's only make decisions from a place of expansion. And so if we
great.
do want to walk the planet on a lighter frame, and we do want to feel lighter in our bodies, and we do want to feel more connected, that's amazing. But let's focus on the intentionality of what we want, and really anchor in the feeling of what we want, and move in a direction that feels good, not from a place of fear and trying to berate our bodies and shame ourselves and hate our bodies until we get there. Because we all know how to do that, right? We all know how to treat ourselves like a bag of shit and lose weight, and then as soon as we throw in the towel, we gain all the weight back plus more. The reason why we have the reputation that we do, and we're focused on sustainability, is because we understand the underlying issues of all of these of using food as a drug. Like, let's address that. Let's get into why that is taking place, whether it's sexual abuse or just, you know, childhood trauma or whatever it is. There's a range of reasons why people you know, develop binge eating disorder and disordered eating. But let's understand that, and let's understand the emotionality that we're trying to numb with food. Let's heal that first. Therefore, we don't need to use food as a drug. Therefore, weight loss becomes a result of doing that work. It's not the focus, because what we know to be true, the majority of the times, is physical weight on our body is a representation of the emotional weight that we're not addressing, right? And so when we're constantly just trying to attack the physical weight, we're missing the point. That's why we gain and lose the same 50 pounds for our whole friggin' lives, because we're not understanding what's underneath that. And furthermore, we have an $80 billion weight loss industry that is constantly repackaging the same bullshit and trying to sell it to us, that is keeping us overweight and overwhelmed and frustrated and creating stories that we have no willpower. And so our approach is just different. It takes longer, right? And so if you want to, you know, lose 20 pounds in 20 days, there's a slew of people who do that. We work with people for 6 months at a minimum, and we work through like what is actually present for them, and we do it in a very holistic spiritual development way. And that word may scare some people, and that's cool. It scared me too. But it's really about understanding the energetics of our body and understanding like there's so many more things at play. You know, we have our higher self, we have our inner child, we have the wounded parts of us, we have, you know, trauma, and like all of these things are a part of what we need to acknowledge and look at when we're trying to come back into a place of alignment. And so the majority of the women are like stuck in the diet binge cycle, trying to externalize a very, very internal problem.
Oh my God, it was so beautifully said. You go into such flow. I love it. Yeah, it was such a passion. But you know, even though we're talking about food, I mean, you are shifting the way people are being. You know, and so this is not. It's food, and it's going to help people feel better physically. But you're actually teaching the same thing that I'm teaching, and it's shifting energy and it's shifting mindset. And I mean, that's like such the basis of what I talk about, and it's coming out of that root of fear and shame and guilt, because that vibration is like a 10 or a 20, and you cannot be productive or sustainable or creative or happy in that vibration, because it's so low, it's so contracted. But you're so right, because we were brought up with that messaging, and you're right, it gets reinforced. And I love that you're saying that, because I haven't heard it said the way that you're talking about that, looking at it from the root of fear and love, which I agree, those are the two basic emotions, and we're either acting out of one or the other, with a range of emotions wrapped around each one. But to get people to get that, like so many people just had an aha moment watching this, and I did too. It's like, you're right, like it's fear-based, it's shame-based. Yeah. But they trick you because they make it sound like it's goal-based, which seems productive and happy, but it's not. It's about feeling ashamed, and they're using that to drive with that energy.
Right. And it works, right? It works. I mean, like,
it's powerful.
It's like it's powerful and it's working, but it's also, it sucks. And here's why. Like, we have reptilian brains, right? So we still respond to scarcity. We still, you know, like if we look at a lot of like the internet marketers, like, get in now, 30 days left, there's only 5 spots. Like, fuck, I'm so committed to not like using trickery in my marketing, because I'm just not about that. And I think we're so used to that. Yeah. And so the diet and weight loss industry is doing a very similar narrative, right? They're using trickery, they're using fear, they're using scarcity, they're using all this stuff to make you seem like if you don't take action now, you're gonna be forever alone and no one's gonna love you. And it's so horrible. It's so horrible. Like, what if we just inspire people to become the highest, best version of themselves, and let the decision for them to take action to be one of their higher self versus trying to run away from what is. And I did so I'm not a big like body positivity advocate. I'm actually not at all. And I know a lot of people are like, wait, what, Sam? What do you mean? And here's why. Because I don't genuinely believe, based on my experience and working with over 7,000 people, that we can go from 20 years of body hate into like, I love myself it just doesn't work, right? We have to like love the part of us that hates our body first. You know, we have to like accept what is and just truly own and take full ownership and emotional responsibility of what is. And if that means you're unhappy in your body and that means you hate your body, that's okay. But let's own that. And then let's have an intention of like what it is that we want. How do we want to feel? How do we want to treat our bodies? And just really be clear of exactly where we're at and exactly where we're going. Not necessarily worrying about the how we're going to get there, but just be clear with those two narratives. Because if we try and convince ourselves that we love our body when everything in our system and ourselves is saying the opposite, we're not gonna transcend, we're not gonna transform.
I think that just gave so many people a sigh of relief. You're right. I mean, you're right. Because some people can get there, and it is a beautiful thing, and I'm sure you support that. But you're right. I think for so many people, it's not realistic, and they feel like they have to use that language, and it's not aligning with them, and then it's going to cause more contraction and resistance to that healing flow.
It's interesting. I did a video a couple months ago called "The Negative Side of Body Positivity." There was about 90 people who were like, "This is the best thing we've ever seen," and 10 people who like wanted to shit on my doorstep. So you're not gonna win them all. But like that's my point of like I've seen it firsthand, the frustration of like women trying to love their bodies because of the body positivity movement, and they're just getting frustrated and not actually seeing results. And if we actually look at what matters, it's people's lives changing. It's their vibration enhancing and them becoming more in alignment. And so we have to look at all things that are getting in the way of our own innate alignment. And if denial is one of them, cool, let's look at it. It's not a bad thing. We're in denial. Great. I'm in denial about shit, you know, but as soon as I like look at it and look at it for what it is and not better than it is, then I can transcend it. So it's just really about like the reality of like looking at it for what it is. It's just like our bank accounts, right? If we want a more stable financial situation, let's not pretend that everything's great. Like, let's look at our debt. Let's look at our credit cards. Let's look at all that stuff so that we can go, okay, great. This is where I am. This is where I want to go. Let's make an action plan to get there.
Oh my gosh. I think you're right. And the people that are going to align with you are the people that are going to come to you. And it's, that is such a, I love it because I love it. You're just shifting the paradigm for people all the way around. And it's about naming things for what they are. I mean, you're going to call the real shit, and you're going to sit with people. And that's why you're doing so well, because people know that you're going to see them for who they are, and they can bring all of that without faking something that they feel like they have to say, which is not going to be in alignment with how they really feel. And you're just going to call it. Yeah.
I think like we're so good at creating superficial connections through wearing masks with ourselves,
of course,
and with other people, right? I didn't know myself because I was wearing so many masks all the time. I was wearing my perfectionist mask. I was wearing my everything's awesome all the time mask. I was wearing my I'm a entrepreneur, like I got my shit together mask. Like I was wearing all these masks. So I couldn't actually I couldn't actually grow because I had a false sense of identity. So when I recognize all these parts of me that were at play, I could just like fully strip off all the masks and go like, oh, I'm just a human. And like these are my flaws, and this is what I stand for, and blah 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 blah, and then I can connect on that level with myself and with other people, and especially more so with myself, because it's like we can only connect with other people to the depth in which we're willing to connect with ourselves. And so I know the deeper I'm willing to go into my body, into myself, into all parts of me, the more I'm able to connect with my boyfriend, my family, my friends, my clients, my community, my potential clients, et cetera, et cetera. So it is really doing us a service when we look at things exactly as they are.
Oh my gosh. So I want to, I've got to wrap this up, and I want to end it with this question, because I love looking at manifesting and looking at how we want to feel. So what are some words or some way you would describe what people can look forward to, like when they go through your program? And I know you fully accept where people are. I mean, it just sounds like you just are going to let them show up as their real selves. But what can excite people? Like where would you like them to get to? Or what do you hear like the result of, like, what does that feel like when the 6 month kind of draws? Like, what could they look forward to when that healing is underway and is really working and alignment is happening?
Yeah, some of the words that come to mind just based on like feedback from clients is liberation, is contentment, peace, calm, connected, alive, clear. It basically like when we're living a body-based life and we're not living in our heads, like everything's easier. And when we can when we can connect so deeply and we feel grounded in ourselves, it allows us to have a higher vibration, so we can play more, so we can be more light. Like a lot of people, like, I love playing. It's one of my favorite things ever. And like, people ask, like, Sam, how are you so playful, but yet you still run a successful business? I'm like, I run a successful business because I let myself play. Like, if I didn't let myself play and I just was serious all the time, like, I'd do fuck all, right? Because I would be so up in my head and so serious all the time. But because I crave the vibration of play constantly, and I'm constantly giving myself permission to do that, it gets, translated into my business. And so play for us is like, it's so productive. It's what we get to do. It's how we get to live. We're not designed for stress and overwhelm and anxiety constantly. We're designed for happiness and play and joy and bliss and all these amazing juicy emotions. And so that's pretty much the answer to your question.
I love when play comes up, because people forget. And so, don't you guys want some of this? Oh my gosh, I just want to see, like, women flooding to you, because they just want to find this paradigm of clarity and play and total alignment, and that we can let go of all this false alignment and this false attachment and this illusions that we've all agreed to. And I think it is just going to keep, like, I see it like the waves coming off of you, like, because it is so real. And don't you guys believe her listening? So I want to make sure they know where to find you. So let's talk about where you are. And I know, I'll let you go ahead and do it. Where do they find you?
So basically everything is at hungryforhappiness.com. So if the society is something that you're interested in and you're like, hey, I just want to finally end the fight with food, everything we do is by application and invitation, just to make sure that it's just perfect for you. And so we'll have a chat on the phone and we'll talk about if that makes sense for you. I'm very responsive on Instagram under my personal name and the business. So either Samantha Skelly or Hungry for Happiness. Send me a DM if you have questions based on anything I said. Feel free to DM me there. Got the YouTubes, we got podcasts, all that kind of stuff. So you can basically find anything under either Samantha Skelly or Hungry for Happiness.
Yeah, y'all go find her if she resonates with you. I mean, and I know she's just amazing. And and follow her on Instagram and the YouTube videos. Like, if you just want to check out some free stuff, just go on there and feel for the energy. And I love that you guys are going to just, like, handhold when they call and just, like, talk through total acceptance. Like, that's what we need more of in this world. Acceptance.
We're big on intimacy and connection. So, like, everything that we do is like, how can we be more intimate and how can we be more connected? Like, if it was up to me, I'd, like, go to my clients' houses and just have tea with them. But it's like, so that's so important to me. So yeah, we want to create deep connections with everyone who joins us. It's just so important. I never want people to feel like a number, because this issue is very intimate.
Well, and I think that I mean, what you just said is actually one of the main things that comes along with these kinds of issues, and it's isolation, because people are doing this.
Totally. Yeah.
And so you're solving it for all of us, because they're doing it alone and they feel like it's just them. And I mean, the binging and the purging and whatever is, like, done in such a private, sad place. So if you want connection, you want someone that gets you, find her at hungryforhappiness.com. Thank you so much for being so freaking real, Sam. I just love your energy. I wish I lived next door. I'd come over and curl up. I know. She's so great. Don't you want to curl up with her? Well, go find her. And I just bless all that you do. And I thank you so much for being on my show. You guys, go find Sam. And stay tuned for the next episode of the Dr. Karin Show. And remember, when you're leading with your heart, like Sam says, when you're coming from a place of love and not fear, you're always going in the right direction. Bye, guys.